Listen to me. There comes a point in your life when you have to decide. Are you going to keep whining about your situation? Or are you finally going to push? Because whining will never build your future. Whining will never pay your bills. Whining will never elevate your family. Whining only keeps you stuck exactly where you are. Every time you complain, you give your power away. Every time you make an excuse, you delay your own breakthrough. You're not a victim of your circumstances. You're a victim of your decisions. And the moment you take responsibility for your life, everything shifts. Some of you want success, but you don't want discomfort. You want elevation, but you don't want the pressure. You want the promise, but you don't want the process. Whining steals your power, and most people don't even realize how quietly and consistently it drains their strength. Every time you complain about your situation, your job, your challenges, your life, something inside you becomes weaker. It's like giving away pieces of your power one complaint at a time until there's nothing left but frustration and helplessness. People don't lose because they aren't capable. They lose because they let whining replace action, excuses replace strategy, and frustration replace hunger. The truth is simple. You cannot rise and complain at the same time. Complainers rarely conquer anything. They spend their days pointing fingers, blaming circumstances, comparing themselves to others, and convincing themselves that life is unfair. But what they don't see is that every complaint reinforces a belief that they are powerless. And once your mind believes you're powerless, it stops fighting, it stops creating, it stops pushing. That is the real cost of whining. Complaining is a habit, and like every habit, it grows. It starts small. A bad morning, a slow month, a closed door, and suddenly everything becomes a reason to whine. The weather, the people, the opportunities you didn't get, the challenges you didn't want. Before you know it, you've trained your mind to search for what's wrong instead of what's possible. And once you live in that mindset, everything feels heavier than it actually is. Whining is dangerous because it gives you psychological permission to do nothing. When you complain about how hard your life is, you justify not taking action. When you talk about how unfair things are, you excuse yourself from responsibility. When you blame circumstances, you protect your ego instead of improving your reality. You tell yourself, there's nothing I can do. And once you believe that, your progress stops. But people who rise, people who build, who transform, who break generational patterns, they understand something different. They know that every minute spent whining is a minute they could have spent building. They know complaints don't change outcomes. They know problems don't get solved because you're upset. They get solved because you take ownership. They know that the only way to gain real power is to act, not react. The moment you stop whining, something extraordinary happens. Your mind becomes clear, clear to strategize, clear to focus, clear to recognize opportunities instead of obstacles. You begin to see that you're not stuck, you just stopped pushing. You're not defeated, you just stopped believing. And when you shift from complaining to creating, life starts responding differently. Doors open, energy rises, momentum builds, strength returns. Your power doesn't come from avoiding problems. It comes from facing them head on. Complaining keeps you in the past, but action moves you toward the future. The people who achieve greatness aren't the ones with perfect circumstances. They're the ones who refuse to let circumstances control their spirit. They rise because they won't give their power away, not to fear, not to stress, and definitely not to whining. Taking responsibility is the moment everything changes. Life does not transform because circumstances suddenly get easier. It transforms because you finally decide to own your choices, your habits, your mindset, and your outcomes. Most people want success, but they want it delivered to them without ever having to admit that they played a role in where they are. They blame the boss, the economy, the family, the mistakes, the timing, everything except the person in the mirror. But the truth is this: nothing in your life changes until you accept that your results are a reflection of your decisions. That's the difference between people who move forward and people who stay stuck. The level of responsibility they're willing to carry. Excuses feel comfortable because they protect your ego. When you say, I didn't succeed because of them, you don't have to admit that you could have done more. When you say, I failed because of the situation, you avoid the discomfort of facing your own potential. Excuses make you feel safe, but they also make you weak. They create a lie that sounds like truth, a trap that feels like comfort. And once excuses become normal, accountability feels like an attack instead of an opportunity. But when you finally accept responsibility, something powerful happens. Your life returns to your control. Suddenly, you're no longer waiting for permission to grow. You're not hoping for opportunities. You're creating them. You stop thinking about what you lack and start focusing on what you can do. Responsibility shifts you from being a passenger in your own life to being the driver. And when you're driving, you decide the direction, the speed, the intensity, the destination. Responsibility is not blame, it's not self-punishment, it's ownership. It's saying, I may not control everything that happens to me, but I control how I respond, how I grow, and how I push forward. Life will always bring challenges, pain, loss, setbacks, disappointments. But responsibility means you refuse to let those moments define you. You choose to rise from them instead of whining about them. You choose strength over excuses, action over avoidance, hunger over helplessness. People who take responsibility stop negotiating with their dreams. They stop giving half effort. They stop waiting for motivation to show up. They do the work even when they don't feel like it. They stay disciplined even when no one is watching. They push forward even when the path isn't clear. And because of this, life begins to respond to them differently. They move faster, rise higher, and grow stronger, not because they had fewer obstacles, but because they refused to hand their power to excuses. Responsibility also builds confidence. When you know your actions created your progress, you walk differently, you speak differently, you think differently, you trust yourself because your results are a product of your effort, not luck. And with every step of accountability, you grow into someone capable of leading, influencing, and inspiring. At the end of the day, the people who achieve the most in life are not the most talented. They are the most responsible. They don't waste time whining. They don't hide behind excuses. They don't blame the world. They stand firm, take ownership, and keep moving forward, knowing that everything they want is on the other side of relentless responsibility. Discomfort is the doorway to growth, but most people treat discomfort like an enemy instead of a teacher. They run from it, hide from it, avoid it, and then wonder why their life never changes. The truth is, nothing powerful ever grows in the comfort zone. Comfort keeps you average. Comfort keeps you predictable. Comfort keeps you stuck in the same routines, the same habits, the same fears, the same excuses. Growth requires friction, pressure, stretching, and being willing to feel the heat that forces you to evolve. When you look at successful people, you're not looking at individuals who had it easy. You're looking at individuals who trained themselves to stay calm, focused, and disciplined in uncomfortable environments. They didn't wait for the right moment or perfect conditions. They moved while things were messy. They pushed while things were uncertain. They acted even when they were afraid. They understand that discomfort is not a signal to stop, it's a signal that you're moving in the right direction. Every breakthrough in life comes with a season of discomfort. Trying something new feels uncomfortable. Waking up early feels uncomfortable. Being consistent feels uncomfortable. Cutting out bad habits feels uncomfortable. Holding yourself accountable feels uncomfortable. Changing your environment feels uncomfortable. Saying no to distractions feels uncomfortable. But all discomfort has one purpose: to pull you out of who you are and push you toward who you're becoming. Think of a muscle. It only grows when it's challenged, stretched, and put under resistance. Life works the same way. You cannot become stronger by living easy. You cannot develop courage by avoiding fear. You cannot build discipline by choosing what's comfortable. Growth demands sacrifice. Sacrifice demands discomfort. And discomfort demands that you learn to push through instead of pulling back. Most people treat discomfort like a stop sign. The moment things get difficult, they quit. The moment the pressure increases, they fold. The moment their emotions get involved, they retreat back to safety, but that safety is deception. It feels secure, but it keeps them trapped. Comfort kills more dreams than failure ever will. It convinces you that good enough is enough. It whispers that trying again is too risky. It creates a life of silent regret. Those who rise in life understand something deeper. Discomfort is the birthplace of transformation. It is where your mind toughens, where your habits sharpen, where your purpose becomes clearer. When you willingly put yourself through discomfort, you're not suffering, you're strengthening. You're building qualities most people never develop because they never stay long enough in the uncomfortable moments to let them shape them. Discomfort is not there to punish you, it is there to prepare you. Every challenge you face is forging a version of you that can handle the blessings you're praying for. Every obstacle is teaching you resilience. Every struggle is crafting a tougher, sharper, more disciplined version of yourself. And once you learn to embrace discomfort instead of running from it, you unlock a level of growth that most people will never experience because they simply weren't willing to push through the pressure. Winners create opportunities instead of waiting for conditions to improve, and that mindset alone separates them from the masses. Most people sit around hoping for the perfect moment, the perfect timing, the perfect environment, the perfect support. They tell themselves they'll start when things calm down, when they feel ready, when life gets easier, but life never becomes perfect. Conditions never become ideal. Readiness never arrives on its own. If you're waiting for everything to align before you move, you will wait your entire life. Winners understand this truth deeply, and that's why they take action even while conditions are against them. They do not wait for the storm to pass. They build in the rain. They do not look for guarantees. They move with faith, hunger, and determination. People who wait for chances stay stagnant. People who create chances accelerate. Opportunity doesn't show up just because you want it. It shows up because you worked for it, prepared for it, and pushed through situations others would have avoided. When you act, even imperfectly, you create momentum. When you move, you attract new paths, new connections, new possibilities. And the moment you demonstrate that you're willing to grind even without certainty, life starts opening doors no one else can see. The world belongs to those who take initiative, the movers, the builders, the doers, the ones who say, I'll start with what I have from where I am and I'll grow as I go. They don't sit around complaining about what they lack. They don't wait for inspiration or motivation. They know motion creates motivation, not the other way around. They push, they experiment, they fail, they adjust, they push again. They treat every setback as information and every obstacle as training. They aren't afraid of messy beginnings because they know messy beginnings lead to powerful endings. There will always be someone smarter, richer, more connected, more experienced. But many of those people never rise because they rely solely on their advantages instead of their effort. Meanwhile, someone with less starts where they are, uses what they have, and keeps pushing until they create their own lane. Opportunity is not handed to them. They carve it out of the challenges other people run from. They knock on doors long enough until one opens. They build their skills until people have no choice but to notice. They show up consistently until the world respects their presence. When you stop waiting for conditions to improve and start moving despite the obstacles, you shift from being passive to being powerful. You become someone who shapes their environment rather than being shaped by it. You stop being reactive and start being proactive. This is how winners think. If the opportunity doesn't exist, they create it. If the path isn't clear, they make one. If no one believes in them, they believe in themselves enough to keep going. And because of that mindset, life rewards them with doors that stay locked to everyone else. Champions grind even without applause because they understand something most people never learn. Validation is temporary, but discipline is forever. When you depend on others to clap for you, approve you, or notice your effort, you become a slave to their opinions. You move when they celebrate you and stop when they stay silent. That's why so many people never reach greatness. They only work when someone is watching. They only push when they feel appreciated. They only stay consistent when someone acknowledges their progress. Champions are different. They grind in the dark. They put in the hours when nobody sees, nobody praises, and nobody understands their hunger. Their drive comes from purpose, not attention. There is a heaviness that comes with chasing something big, something meaningful, something greater than yourself. You will have seasons where nobody checks on you, nobody encourages you, and nobody recognizes the effort you're giving. You will question if the work is worth it, if anyone cares, if you're even on the right path. But champions know this feeling well, and they don't run from it. They embrace it. Because they understand the truth. The work you do in silence builds the strength you need for the moments in the spotlight. The private grind creates the public results. Everyone loves the performance, but few love the preparation. Everyone loves success stories, but few want the lonely nights, the early mornings, the late hours, the sacrifices, the boring consistency it takes to create those stories. Champions don't need the crowd, they need the mission. They don't need compliments, they need progress. They don't wake up for applause, they wake up for purpose. They look in the mirror and commit to giving everything they have, even when the world gives nothing back. There will be days when your effort feels invisible, days when you're doing the right things but getting no immediate results, days when your grind produces silence instead of celebration. This is where most people quit, because they mistake silence for failure. But silence is not failure. Silence is the proving ground. Silence is where discipline is forged, where character is shaped, where commitment is tested. Anyone can work when the world is cheering. Champions work when the world is quiet. The truth is, consistency grows in places where applause cannot reach. When you show up day after day without recognition, you build something far more valuable than praise. You build resilience. You build trust in yourself. You build an identity rooted in discipline rather than approval. You stop asking, "Who will notice my work?" And you start asking, "How far can I push myself?" That's the mindset that changes lives. That's the mindset that creates unstoppable people. And when your moment finally arrives, when the doors open, when the opportunities show up, when the results begin to reveal themselves, people will call you lucky. They will say you came out of nowhere. They will act like things happened suddenly. They won't see the hours you grinded alone, the days you pushed yourself without encouragement, the nights you worked while others slept. But you will know. You'll know that everything you earned came from showing up without applause, pushing without permission, and grinding without needing anyone to validate who you are. You cannot rise without consistency, because consistency is the engine behind every transformation. People think greatness comes from big moments, massive breakthroughs, or dramatic changes, but the truth is far simpler. Greatness is built in the small, repetitive, unglamorous actions you choose to do every single day. Consistency is not exciting, but it is undefeated. It doesn't need talent, it doesn't need inspiration, it doesn't need luck, only commitment. The problem is most people are not consistent, they are emotional. They do things only when they feel like it. They chase motivation like it's fuel, not realizing the real fuel is discipline, and discipline is born in consistency. You cannot build anything meaningful if you show up only when it's easy. You cannot transform your body, your mind, your habits, your finances, your career, your relationships, or your future without repetition. Growth is not an event, it is a process. A slow, steady, sometimes frustrating process that demands you return every day with the same level of hunger. The world is full of people who start, but very few who finish, because starting is easy, staying is hard, beginning is exciting, continuing is uncomfortable, new goals feel inspiring, daily execution feels exhausting. But consistency is what separates dreamers from doers. Consistency forces you to confront your weaknesses. It reveals your excuses, exposes your habits, and challenges your limits. That's why most people avoid it. They want fast results, quick success, and instant gratification. But everything valuable in life requires investment. Time investment, energy investment, effort investment. You cannot microwave mastery. You cannot shortcut growth. You cannot cheat the process. If you want something exceptional, you must be willing to do something consistently that the average person won't do. Every day you show up, even when you're tired, even when you're frustrated, even when progress feels slow. You build a brick, and brick by brick, day by day, hour by hour, you construct something powerful, momentum. Momentum is the force that turns small actions into unstoppable progress. It's the compound effect of persistence. Once momentum builds, everything becomes easier, but momentum only comes to those who are consistent long enough to earn it. Consistency is also proof of your identity. You cannot call yourself disciplined if your actions don't match your words. You cannot call yourself committed if you show up only when life is convenient. Every time you stay consistent, you are casting a vote for the person you want to become, and eventually those votes add up. They shape your character, they define your habits, they hardwire your mindset. Consistency transforms not just your results, but your beliefs about who you are and what you can do. Most people underestimate what they can accomplish with small, consistent effort. They think changes must be big to matter, but the biggest outcomes come from the smallest actions done repeatedly. One push, one decision, one disciplined day, then another, then another. Eventually, the world sees your results and calls you gifted, never realizing all you did was show up when they didn't. You cannot grow if you keep repeating the same habits that created the life you are trying to escape. Change demands sacrifice, and sacrifice demands discipline. Most people want a new life, but they don't want to give up the behaviors that keep them stuck. They want success while clinging to comfort. They want transformation while holding on to the very patterns that destroy their potential. Growth requires you to let go of who you were so you can become who you're meant to be. And that process is uncomfortable, painful, and incredibly confronting, which is why so many people avoid it. Your current habits are perfectly designed to give you your current results. If you don't like where you are, you must change what you repeatedly do. But most people defend their excuses harder than they defend their dreams. They say they want discipline, but they keep choosing distraction. They say they want progress, but they cling to procrastination. They say they want health, but they keep choosing comfort over consistency. They want growth without changing the behaviors that keep them small, but you cannot elevate while carrying the weight of old habits on your back. There comes a moment when you must look in the mirror and be brutally honest with yourself. Are your habits aligned with the future you want, or with the comfort you refuse to release? You cannot expect a championship lifestyle with amateur habits. You cannot expect excellence while practicing mediocrity. You cannot expect results from work you never did. Growth requires sacrifice, sacrificing the comfort of now for the reward of later, and that sacrifice is what scares most people. Breaking old habits feels like breaking pieces of yourself. It forces you to challenge routines that feel familiar, even if they are destructive. It exposes your comfort zones. It demands discipline when excuses feel easier. It requires focus when distractions feel pleasurable. But growth demands that you trade what is comfortable for what is necessary. You must kill the habits that kill your potential. You must starve the weaknesses that weaken your future. You must remove the behaviors that remove your progress. When you sacrifice old habits, you open space for new ones to take root. Stronger ones, healthier ones, more powerful ones. Habits that push you forward instead of holding you back. Habits that align with the life you claim you want. Every time you let go of a limiting behavior, you reclaim a piece of your power. Every time you replace a weak habit with a strong one, you add fuel to your momentum. And with every disciplined decision, you sculpt a new identity. one capable of doing the things your old self could never do. The truth is, you cannot expect a different life while living the same day over and over again. Nothing changes until your habits change. Nothing grows until your discipline grows. Nothing elevates until your mindset elevates. Growth is not magic, it's intentional sacrifice. It's choosing long-term transformation over short-term pleasure. And if you are willing to let go of who you were, you will become someone unstoppable. Your environment has the power to push you forward or pull you backward, to sharpen your ambition or suffocate it. You can have all the talent in the world, all the hunger in your heart, all the dreams in your mind. But if you surround yourself with people who complain, make excuses, settle for average, or quit every time life gets tough, their energy will infect you. You think you're strong enough to rise above it, but the truth is simple. Environment wins more often than intention. If you stay around small minds, your big goals will start shrinking to fit the room. Some people are not bad. They're just not built for where you're going. Their mindset is shaped by fear. Their habits are shaped by comfort. Their goals are shaped by limitations. Their energy drains you, distracts you, or slows you down. You can't expect to elevate if you're connected to people who remain committed to staying the same. Growth becomes impossible when your surroundings contradict your ambitions. The wrong environment can kill your discipline, dull your hunger, and convince you to settle for a life far below your potential. You need to be around people who challenge you, not people who comfort your excuses. People who push you, not people who pamper your weaknesses. People who hold you accountable, not people who clap for your laziness. You need voices that elevate your standards, not voices that lower your expectations. You need energy that fuels your purpose, not energy that feeds your distractions. You need people who push you to level up, not people who keep you living at the level they're comfortable with. Sometimes growth requires separation. Not because you think you're better than anyone, but because you know you can be better than who you currently are. There are people you love who cannot go where you're going. There are environments you've outgrown. There are circles that once fit you but now limit you. Staying in those spaces will dim your light, shrink your vision, and keep you living a life that doesn't match your destiny. You can't elevate if you keep shrinking yourself to fit places you've already outgrown. The people you surround yourself with influence your momentum, your decisions, your attitude, and your belief system. If you walk with quitters, you'll start quitting. If you walk with complainers, you'll start complaining. If you walk with grinders, you'll start grinding. If you walk with people who push, stretch, and challenge themselves, you'll do the same. You become what you repeatedly connect with. Your circle is either your cage or your catalyst. Choosing the right environment is choosing your future. You need to be around people who are hungry, people who are disciplined, people who speak possibility, not limitation, people who live with purpose, not distraction. People who act, not whine, because when your circle operates at a higher level, it forces you to rise. Their energy elevates your effort. Their pace increases your speed. Their standards force you to raise yours. If you want to transform your life, you must transform your environment. Surround yourself with people who remind you of your potential, not your past. Surround yourself with people who demand growth, not comfort. Surround yourself with people who push you to be your best, not stay your average. Your environment is shaping you every single day. Make sure it's shaping you into who you're becoming, not who you're trying to leave behind. When you decide to stop whining and push, something begins to shift inside you. You stop waiting for someone to show up and rescue you. You stop wishing that life was easier, smoother, or more convenient. You stop hoping that circumstances will magically align in your favor. Instead, you look at what you've got, your hands, your heart, your grit, your breath, and you use it. You stop holding your life hostage to excuses and start unlocking it with action. Because the truth is this: nobody is coming to hand you the life you want. The life you want is forged in the fire of your own decisions. You can cry, complain, and crumble, but none of that is going to move you an inch forward. But when you push, when you say, I'm tired, but I'm still going, when you say, I'm hurting, but I'm not quitting, something wakes up in you that's been asleep for years. Something inside you stands up and says, let me show you what we can really do. Pushing isn't glamorous. It's not Instagram worthy. It's sweaty, raw, and lonely. Most people stop because the push doesn't feel good at first. It feels heavy. It feels like dragging a mountain uphill. But what they don't understand is that the push gets easier. The weight that crushed you yesterday becomes the warm-up today. The storm that shook you last year becomes the breeze that guides you now. Strength doesn't come from wishing life were lighter. It comes from pushing against the weight you already have. Every rep you do in life builds a layer of fire inside you. Every moment you choose effort instead of excuses adds another brick to the foundation of the person you're becoming. Some people talk about how they want success, but they don't push for it. They think just wanting it is enough, but success doesn't respond to desire. It responds to discipline, it responds to sweat, it responds to repetition. You have to push when you don't feel like it. You have to push when the world is silent and nobody sees your effort. You have to push when the results haven't shown up yet. That's the test most people fail. They want progress before they put in the effort. They want the reward before the grind. Life doesn't work like that. The push comes first, the results come later, and they always show up for the people who didn't quit mid. Push. Sometimes you're not losing because you're incapable. You're losing because you're inconsistent. You push for one day, complain the next. You work for 1 week, rest for 3. You give up every time pressure shows up. But the ones who rise, every single time, are the ones who push through the pressure, not around it. They push even when it hurts. They push even when they're scared. They push even when the world doubts them. They push until their body adapts, their mind expands, and their spirit toughens. And one day, after pushing long enough, they look back and realize the mountain that once intimidated them is now far behind them. Not because it got smaller, but because they got stronger. That's what happens when you stop whining and push. The world stops controlling you, and you start controlling your world. Push with purpose, discipline, and hunger, because without all three, effort is wasted. You can work hard without direction, and it will lead nowhere. You can be disciplined without fire, and it will feel like a chore. You can have hunger without structure, and it will burn out quickly. But when purpose, discipline, and hunger collide, something unstoppable is born. Purpose gives your push meaning. It tells you why you're willing to sacrifice, struggle, and endure. Discipline gives your push structure. It keeps you moving even when motivation disappears. Hunger gives your push energy. It fuels the relentless drive to win even when the odds are stacked against you. Purpose is the compass that keeps you aligned with your dreams. Without it, you're pushing blindly, wandering from task to task, chasing results that don't matter. Discipline is the engine that keeps you moving when you're exhausted, discouraged, or doubted. Hunger is the fire that ignites persistence when progress is slow, when the world doubts you, and when your mind wants to quit. Together, they form a triad of unstoppable energy, a force that overcomes obstacles, shatters limits, and defies expectations. When you push with all three, the universe takes notice, not because it owes you anything, but because you've earned the right to be unstoppable. Most people fail because they only have fragments of this triad. They push without purpose and burn out quickly. They push without discipline and fall into inconsistency. They push without hunger and lose the fire needed to outwork everyone around them. But the ones who rise, the ones who dominate their destiny, do not rely on luck, talent, or circumstance. They rely on this combination, and they refuse to move without it. They push with intentionality, method, and relentless desire. They turn every "I can't" into "watch me." They turn every setback into a stepping stone. They turn every criticism into fuel. That is the push that transforms ordinary people into extraordinary achievers. Pushing without purpose, discipline, or hunger is like driving a car without steering, brakes, or fuel. You will go somewhere, but it won't be where you want. Life demands that you bring all three to the table every single day. Show up with purpose, follow through with discipline, and sustain the fire of hunger until what you dreamed of becomes what you live. There will be days when it hurts, days when nothing seems to be working, days when quitting feels easier. But the triad keeps you anchored. Purpose reminds you why you started. Discipline reminds you that consistency beats talent when talent doesn't work. Hunger reminds you that you are capable of more than you imagine. Together, they are unstoppable. When you push with purpose, discipline, and hunger, the world starts to shift around you. Opportunities you couldn't see before appear. Obstacles that once felt insurmountable crumble. People who doubted you become witnesses to your persistence. You stop chasing luck, and luck starts chasing you. You stop hoping for change, and change begins to chase you. Life rewards those who push fully, relentlessly, and intentionally, and nothing else matters. The combination of these three forces is what separates the quitters from the conquerors, the ordinary from the exceptional, the dreamers from the doers. Your future is built on the pushes you refuse to skip, the sacrifices you refuse to avoid, and the fire you refuse to extinguish. Push with purpose, discipline, and hunger, and watch the life you were meant to live come alive. So now, it's your choice, right here, right now. Will you keep whining about what you don't have, blaming what went wrong, waiting for someone to hand you the life you want? Or will you stand up, take responsibility, embrace the discomfort, and push like your future depends on it? Because it does. Everything you've ever wanted is on the other side of action. Everything you've ever dreamed of is waiting for the person who refuses to quit. You can cry about what life gave you, or you can fight for what life owes you. You can complain about the obstacles, or you can let the obstacles build you. You can stay small, or you can rise. I'm telling you this one last time. Whining is cheap, excuses are empty, and comfort will kill your potential faster than failure ever could. But you have the power to rise, to fight, to grind, to push harder than anyone else in the room. You have the strength to go further, the courage to endure longer, and the hunger to achieve what most people only dream about. So stand up, stand tall, look in the mirror and say, no more excuses, no more whining. I will push, I will fight, I will rise, I will win. Let today be the day you stop waiting for life to change for you and start changing it yourself. Your future isn't promised. Your dreams aren't guaranteed, but your effort, your push, your relentless drive, that is yours to control. And when you push with everything you've got, when you refuse to quit, when you take ownership of every choice, every moment, every opportunity, I promise you, your life will never, ever be the same again. Now go. Push, grind, rise, and show the world exactly who you are.